thinking outside of the box. And this is again going to, for those of you who don't like networking or find that it's something that you have to do, a lot of you will then go just because you need to share information, you just need to learn about something that is happening. You go to a talk like this one, you learn from us maybe one or two useful things and you take it, and you might use it, you might not. You go to a networking which is based around the same sector, a cluster, life science, bioscience, cryogenics, etc. So you do have a common interest and you want to meet people who are like-minded people who you can have that discussion. Some people go to networking to find employees. Some people go to networking because they need a job. So it's what we call cultivating people. And then we move to kind of the scale of creating partnerships and building relationships. And that's where I'd like you to think. Okay, you go to a networking event because you want to meet new people. I love meeting new people. I love meeting my friends. And I come and say hello, and I've got you all trained to do 2 kisses by now, not just shake hands. But I love meeting new people. It's exciting when you meet new people, where they come from, actually what mistakes have they made. The best thing that you can learn is from people who make mistakes, so that you don't make them again. And don't you respect those people who share them with you as well. And ultimately, maybe you'll end up going to a networking event and say, actually, why don't we grab coffee and have a chat? I'll hate it if you say to someone, why don't you find me a LinkedIn, here's my business card, and give it. If I meet someone at a networking event, I tend to actually email them afterwards and say, if you're in Bicester, give me a call and we'll have a coffee. It's never for a business purpose, ever. It's always just to have a coffee and a chat, or a catch-up, like I will say. I think it's much nicer if you use those personal terms. You can still sell your business, you can still ask for a sponsorship, or find a mentor, or find someone to sell something. But it's much nicer if you give it that personal touch than a hard sell. Post-it note 3. Okay, so now I need you to give me at least one example that is going to quantify what it is that you do. So picking up Stuart's Buy Box, he'll say Buy Box delivers 20 million parcels around the UK. So he's quantifying the service that he offers to his customers or to the engineers or whatever it is. I need you to write down something that is going to quantify what your business does, or a case study, something that actually is going to tell me and give me an example. It gets harder as we go through the post-it notes. See, I'm not moving. Okay, we all got it? Look, it's worse for Stuart now because I stole it from him. Good? Right. So we've done the profile of the networker and the 4 factors that could influence someone who is going to try to start building partnerships and become that kind of party in the partnership. We've done a little bit about the exercise and so on, but what we really want to do is learn tricks and tips, don't we? And then we can go and use them, because this is about practical and examples and useful tips. So, and I'm going to start illustrating this with examples. The slides are there for you to have a look, because you might get lost in my accent or how fast I speak. And I will let you read the slides, but for me it's very much to give you an example. About 10 years ago, how many of you did ever hear of something called Oxmedia Network? Hey! Oxmedia Network was a network for media professionals, which included publishing videos, filming, PR, internet, etc. Oxmedia Network was run by a lady called Wendy Nicolaidis, and I started helping her to support her during the events, just because I wanted to get more involved with doing networking and running networking events and clusters and so on. And we found a formula which was great, and people loved it. So now I'm going to share with you the formula. And the formula was this. You will have someone who's a network manager or someone who's in charge of the event, but you will always have someone who you can rely on to look after new people. So, Wendy will say hello to the members. I will take care of the new people and find someone to look after them. And I just did that before with Bernard and Jonathan, because I do it instantly. It happens to me. When we had someone new, I will find who in the room was my fallback person or my emergency contact. And I will take them and say, can you look after Paul, Andy? And then Andy knew that Paul was a new member and he'd start a conversation with them. Because there is nothing more than everyone hates than being left alone at a networking event with no one to talk to. And that will put you off forever. If you are running an event, find a connector, someone who's going to be connecting people. Because I started doing it 10 years ago, I do it all the time. I can't help myself. So if I have a meeting with someone, if I meet someone, I start thinking about who I need to connect them to. And being a connector is a great skill because people will love you for that. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. A champion. So how many of you have got a champion? I just love the word champion. I had the word chairman, by the way. A champion is someone who, again, I'll give you an example. Cryogenics cluster, which is now great, well known in the region, and I helped Wendy and I won't get all the credit for it, she's here. Wendy and I started it about 2 years ago. And the beauty of the cryogenics cluster was that we had someone within the industry to champion it. So if you start working, if you start a working group, a cluster, a network, a task force, and you want to attract people within an industry or a sector, find a champion who is within the sector. Because the moment that that champion invites these people to come to a meeting, they will say, oh, he's there, I'll be there too. Just for that reason. But also the second reason is, if he's taking it serious, it must be worth attending it. If I'd sent the letters, they will not half of them will have attended. But because it was someone within the industry who was working in the industry, then we had a full house. So find a champion who's going to champion your event, your networks, your clusters. Listen. I find it very hard not to talk all the time. But the only time that I will not talk is at a networking event, because there is no greater skill, I know friend, there is no greater skill than listening. You have to get your pitch right, but you have to listen and you have to learn to listen. And it's very, very hard. So you need to practice to listen. When you go home, just talk to your partner and say, how was your day, dear, and so on, and just force yourself to practice listening, because it's a great skill. You learn a lot about other people just by doing it. Prepare beforehand goes with planning, so I do plan my events, I do plan where I go. I look at the list, I look at who I can meet, I know what sort of biscuits they have, whether I like them or not, and which ones will go first. So I know everything to the detail. And the other thing that you need to be very, 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 very strong at is being very clear. When you are trying to get your message across with people in a networking event or within a partnership, it's clarity. Clarity is very, very important. And that goes from doing presentations to pitching to talking to anyone. So you have to get that kind of vocabulary which is not difficult to understand, which is not technical. And sometimes what it helps, and I know this might sound crazy, is that you imagine that the person you're talking to at a networking event is your 7-year-old child. And you explain to them what it is that you do from a perspective of another child. So you use that kind of vocabulary. Because you need to avoid vocabulary which is too technical, that people will just go blank and you've lost them. And interesting. But that comes with being memorable, of course. And I picked something from this book, which I'll tell you about later, but this book, which is The Truth About Innovation, and I did say to Stuart I was going to bring the book because it makes me look very intelligent. this book has got 50 truths about innovation. And one of them is very much not about who you know, but about, not about what you know, but about who they know. And it's very much that the knowledge of the people that they know that you would be able to use to innovate in many cases. So bear that in mind when you're talking to someone within a network and a list of contacts that you can access instantly. This is a very, very practical tips. Right. How many of you have got your batch on the left-hand side? Okay. Would you now put your batch on the right-hand side? Do you know why you put your batch on the right-hand side? Why do you put your batch on the right-hand side? Who said yes?
Shake hands.
Exactly. So when you shake hands with people, unless you give them 2 kisses like I do, you actually be looking at the right-hand side, and it'll make it much easier to read the name. If you have problems listening to what the name is, you actually can read it instantly, and you can address them by the name and get it right. I do have a secret pleasure, which actually went introduced me a few years ago, and it's magnetic badges. And I love them, because, you see, you love them.
Right.
People remember you. You have your own magnetic badge, and people will remember who you are. £9 plus VAT, or something along those lines. But you do have one in your bag, and I do have one on my fridge door, and I never forget it. And if you go to an event where there is not a badge, you can always use it. You make people remember who you are, because you are an individual, and you, again, it's about being memorable. Now, the next one, Tony was too late for this one when he came in, because he was making the fatal mistakes of having a cup of coffee, eating a biscuit, and trying to network with Claire, which made it very difficult. So, pure example, very, very recent, is do not play with food and drink when you are talking to someone. What I tend to do is I tend to get there very early, have a coffee, put the coffee on the table. You barely see me eating anything, unless it's very, very early, you've caught me in the act. Having coffee and eating, or having a buffet and trying to talk to someone. Just find the right time to do those things at different times. I don't really need to say much about it, but do not corner anyone at all. If you see that there is no interest, they're not talking to you, move on, because they will be moving on, and it would be very hurtful for you if they just go, sorry, you're too boring. They won't say that to you, they'll be very polite. We're in Great Britain, they never say that. If we were in Spain, they'll say other things. But, you know, just do not corner people. Do try to be nice. If there is no interest, move on to someone else. QR codes. Have any of you got a business card with a QR code? Yay! When I can't move. You have to count. Here. I would love to do the demonstration, but QR codes are the new way in which you actually save your contacts using your mobile phone. You download a QR code application which will read the QR code and instantly will save all the contact details from Tim on your phone, which will then sync to your computer, and you'll do it just by doing this, scanning it on your mobile phone. So if you are going to get new business cards, get them with the QR code. Extremely 21st century. I've talked about the follow-through quickly. Do it with, let's have a coffee, let's have a chat. Do not just do it. Great to meet you. Let's talk about what we can do together and have a sales meeting or anything like that. I hate it. If any of you have done it to me, you haven't got an email back from me in those terms for sure. But most importantly is about getting your networking pitch right, which is what we are going to see you do. Right, so this is where Frank was tamping with my slides. On your 4th post-it note, you need to write what it is that makes you love what you do. So this is the part in which we become passionate about what we do. Hopefully you will write something and not just stare at the ceiling with it. Right, so we go back to the rule of 3. 3 things that we really like you to take away with you this evening. It's the gospel according to Plastic. Be memorable. So who doesn't remember that I'm Spanish and cheeky and fun and very sociable? I am memorable, and that's my USP. Okay, that's what's great about me, apart from what it says, but that's what's great. Find something that is going to make you memorable. Think outside of the box. Being innovative is about being different, it's about thinking outside of the box. Go to an event, try to find a partner, and don't do it the boring, professional way that everyone does. And thirdly, it's always about joining the dots. So when I have lunch at home, I don't know who else I'm going to end up having dinner with at 10 o'clock at night. But along the way, I will be meeting friends, relatives, acquaintances, etc. When you go to a networking event, you might meet someone who might be a potential supplier, a friend, a mate, a connector, a networker, potential employee, potential boss. You never know. But the dots will always fill and will always join. So join the dots.